Welcome to our first ever Science Policy Slam. We have a great lineup of students and judges and a great audience, including Chancellor Kim Wilcox, Graduate Division Dean Sean Bowler, Engineering Dean Chris Lynch, and UCR Chair of the Board of Trustees Brian Hawley. We also welcome the Campbell family, who have supported this program and in fact have enabled us to create the Science to Policy initiative at UCR. Before we get started, though, we would like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, Lucernia, and Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants. I would now like to invite Congressman Mark Takano to give a few words to open this event. Congressman Takano has represented the Inland Empire's 41st Congressional District since 2013. With a lifetime experience in education and strong ties to UCR, Congressman Takano is a wonderful champion for our students. Congressman.
Thank you, Dr. Susan Hackwood, for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Congressman Mark Takano, and I do represent California's 41st District, which includes the cities of Riverside, Paris, Moreno Valley, and Jurupa Valley. I'd like to thank all of you for having me here today at the UCR Policy Slam. This is a wonderful opportunity for you as UCR students to discuss your research and pitch your ideas. And I'm thrilled to see that so many of you are participating. And I'm so impressed by the work that the Center for Science to Policy does to prepare students who are interested in working on legislation. And it was a pleasure to host the first ever Science to Policy resident in my district office. He applied his graduate training and skills in data analysis to make sure we were working with hard facts. Now, this program is more than just an opportunity for you as students to receive hands-on experience. Science to Policy residents are a tremendous asset to offices looking to produce meaningful results. Now, if I may offer a humble brag, I'd like to note that I am the only elected official to have worked with multiple fellows thus far, and I look forward to working with many more. It's very clear to me that UCR has so much to be proud of. As an alumnus of UCR, where I earned my MFA in creative writing, I am very proud to call myself a Highlander, and it's also a great honor of mine to be able to represent this world-class university in the United States Congress. Now, some of you may know that prior to being elected to Congress, I was a public school teacher for 24 years and served on the Riverside Community College District's Board of Trustees for more than 2 decades. Now in Congress, I serve as a senior member of the Education and Labor Committee, where it's my responsibility to advocate for students and ensure they have access to a quality, affordable education, containing the predatory for-profit colleges and minimizing student loan debt and everything in between. Now, programs like Science to Policy and events like the Policy Slam are helping students pave the way to a successful future. You are applying your learned skills to tackle real-world problems, and I have full faith that you will go on to solve them. And that's just the beginning. Who knows what you will accomplish upon graduating? Now, it's no secret that we are going through some difficult times, and now more than ever, we are looking to you, the next generation of leaders, to guide us in the right direction. And I have no doubt that UCR students are up for that task. And once again, thank you for inviting me to the Policy Slam. I wish you all the best of luck. And now I would like to send it back to Dr. Hackwood.
Okay, thank you very much, Congressman Takano. It's a great introduction. And now to the fun part, the event. And by the numbers, we're going to have 6 graduate students give 4-minute policy pitches, something that they feel passionate about. We're going to have the judges give 6 minutes to give feedback to them from 3 judges, and then the judges will go away and deliberate and come back with winners. It's the first time that we have done this, So let me just do a couple of PowerPoints on what this is on. Okay, so this is the Science to Policy program at UCR. This is a policy slam. And the idea is that a student feels passionate about an issue and thinks, heavens, there should be a law for this. And the student has to then propose what the problem is and what the solution is. And they have to do it in a concise way. We've got a wonderful, wonderful lineup of students, 6 PhD students who are all in the sciences or engineering, will be giving a pitch on a topic, and the topics are very broad, and you can see these students come from across campus, and they're going to give pitches on things as wide-ranging as agrivoltaics, R&D tax credits, the relationship between vaping and COVID. They're going to talk about laser technologies for marking produce. They're going to talk about urban jungles and doing creating a helium reserve in California. So very, very different topics. They worked hard on these topics, and they are generally kind of out of their comfort zone because these are scientists and engineers. So total kudos to them for doing this. And thank you to our wonderful judges who are going to judge them. We've heard from Congressman Takano, Mayor Gina Stande, Mayor Stephen Hernandez, and Assembly Member Chad Mays are going to be the judges. So a great lineup. And I'd like to end by thanking and getting the support from our lead sponsors, the wonderful RAP Foundation and the Palm Desert Center partners have been our primary sponsors. And I would really like to invite you to become a program sponsor as well. All of the donations that we get go towards funding our students, and you can donate at donate.ucr.edu/science to policy S2P. At that point, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask our students to take over. So Holly, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Let me see if I can get my screen shared. Okay, everyone can see? Great. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Holly Andrews. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Evolution, Ecology, and Organismal Biology at UCR. And agrivoltaics is a passion of mine, and I believe that it is a win for everyone in terms of sustainability for California agriculture. Recently, the wonderful company, which is a California-based company known for its pomegranate products, started implementing solar panels into their agricultural orchards. They did this because they saw it be successful in a lot of smaller agricultural farms in California, across the country, and internationally. Agrivoltaics is the crux of this idea, which combines agriculture and voltaics, meaning solar panels, into the same area of land. And it sits at this nexus of food, water, and energy that could potentially improve each of these simultaneously. So let's break it down. How can agrivoltaics, putting solar panels into agriculture, increase food, water, and energy security, each of which is a considerable concern for California with its growing population? First of all, putting solar panels into agricultural farms produces shade for plants. Shade from this damaging California sun means that plants can photosynthesize more efficiently. They can grow larger and produce more fruit per land area, and that means more for us to eat. Because plants are shaded, they actually need to sweat or transpire less, meaning they use less water. Less water is needed to irrigate plants placed under these solar panels, and therefore we can save water. Although plants sweat less, they still do release water vapor into the air. And in addition to this cooling plants, this water vapor also cools solar panels. Cooler solar panels run more efficiently in the California heat, resulting in a greater electrical output for the grid compared to, say, traditional solar farms with no plants growing under them. So clearly agrivoltaics has the potential to be a new frontier for sustainability in California agriculture, and it's been receiving increasing media attention. However, we can further increase the relevance of agrivoltaics within California by introducing and maintaining renewable energy policies that promote agrivoltaics directly and solar research and development. Through things like California's tax credits and Renewable Energies in Agriculture program, which started last year in 2019, we can explicitly include agrivoltaics language that supports this infrastructure in farmlands across the state. We can also adopt other states' programs, such as the Massachusetts SMART program, to introduce cost-effective solar infrastructure into urban and agricultural lands. We can also support new and improved industry and academia collaborations, such as is occurring between the California-based, specifically agrivoltaics company Sol Agra and UC Davis, which are working together to research how to make this system more efficient for plant and solar production. Farmland productivity that uses agrivoltaics can increase by 70%, which is an amazing number. And we can increase the economic value of farmlands by 30%, also a staggering number. And this can increase the, both increase the revenue and increase the revenue stability for farmers across the state who are currently underappreciated but do so much for California. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Questions from judges?
I have a question.
I also have a question. Gina, you first.
Okay, ladies first. Now, do some crops need more sun than others? So are there some, like corn, for example, do some need more sun than others where maybe the solar panels would not work?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And of course, there's research going on about which crops would be best to use under this. But yeah, things like corn might not do so well in this agrivoltaic system, but big like ground cover crops, like there's been research showing that tomatoes are highly successful under these systems. A lot of peppers, which are also grown in California, and other, yeah, shade tolerant crops are actually really successful by their fruit production increases by over 50% under this system because they really don't like the sun. So yeah, extra shade is, yeah, it works really well for these shade tolerant crops. But yeah, it's not going to work for everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, Holly. So, you know, in regards to solar and renewables, we know that we're an energy thirsty state. But one of the things that we've learned this summer is that we actually have too much solar and we have too much wind. So any type of policy, what would your policy proposal be to make sure that this was more of a baseline power instead of intermittent power? Which is solar. Would you couple it with batteries? Would you couple it with pump storage? How would you solve that? Because the impact of the duct chart that we have is already too grave. So what would you do to solve that problem?
That's a great question. Yeah, I guess my inclination is to couple it with batteries. So I guess I should also mention, in addition to being able to introduce this electricity on the grid, this could also provide a power source for farmers on site. So for things like pumping irrigation water onto the farm itself, or I don't know, electric tractors I know have been proposed as a way to make farmers more independent. So in addition to selling back to the grid, farmers could also become more independent and be able to produce their own power on site as well.
So this is more for their own use, not necessarily for selling it to the grid.
It could. The idea is that it's a dual purpose. Yeah, so they can harvest some of it, but ideally they're producing more than they need on site, and so they can also add some back to the grid.
Okay.
This is Steve. I also have a question. How do we account for seasonality? Many farmers will grow peppers say in the fall, and then in the spring will will grow another crop. Does this limit the types of produce that farmer can grow?
That's also a great question. There are a couple of different ways you could approach that. Yeah, we could, there may be a little bit more strategic planning that needs to happen with what crops you're planting if you have these sort of fixed solar panels. However, there's a lot of research going on that's concerning fixed panels versus panels that can move and track the day or track different, I guess, sun trajectories or things like that. So if you have movable panels, you could potentially not interfere with your crop rotations if you're able to move the panels during a time when you don't need the shade or you maybe don't need the extra solar energy. That's a potential solution there, as well as just more strategic planning for which crops you want to rotate out depending on the seasonality. But yeah, that's a great question. I think, yeah, there are multiple different ways we could approach that. And the research is still coming out on that, so yeah.
Any other questions, or we'll move on to the next one?
Me, oh, one more from me. So how would the tax credits work?
I think it would just be, so I believe that there are already some tax credits in place for just installing renewable energy or installing solar panels into urban and agricultural systems. And so it's really just a change of the language to promote agrivoltaics specifically and interspersing solar panels in the same parcel of land as your crops versus in like a separate area.
So there wouldn't be any additional incentives then? There would be no additional incentives for people to do it, just be language to promote?
That's what I'm proposing, but yeah, there could be additional incentives. I think things like the REAP program could also have additional incentives for agrivoltaics specifically. But I'm proposing more of awareness. I think there's already a lot of language in place with the current law or policies and tax credits, and it's just more of a language explicitly supporting agrivoltaics as an option.
All right, okay.
Just a follow-up question on that. Would this proposal make farmers get out of the Williamson Act? Because a lot of the farms do take advantage of the Williamson Act, which is a reduced tax burden on their properties.
That's a great question. I'm not familiar with that act, and so I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that, but I can get back to you on that one. Sorry, I'm not totally familiar with that.
And this is why we're getting graduate students to interface with policymakers. It's exactly the point. I think we do have to move on a little bit though. So thank you, Holly, and thank you. Great questions. And if anyone else has questions, please put them in the chat and we will respond. Let's go on to our next student then. Thomas, you're on.
Thank you guys so much.
Gotta turn on the microphone and stuff before I share the screen. All right, hi everyone, I'm Thomas. I'm an engineering PhD candidate at UCR and I love doing my taxes. Just kidding. But it is great how the government uses tax credits to encourage us to do good things like transition to renewable energy or help the economy when it struggles. You may have noticed that our economy is currently in a recession. We need innovative government support to recover, like better tax credits. I propose modifying California's existing R&D tax credit program to incentivize small businesses to employ Ph.D. students for their research and development. When I tell people I'm a Ph.D. student, most of them hear the word student and ask how my classes are going. But like most STEM PhD students, I only took classes the first year of my 5-year program. The other 4 years are spent doing research work or teaching. This is great if you want to be a professor at a university, but what if you want to work in industry? In fact, more PhD students end up working in industry than in academia. But the only industrial experience we get is usually a summer internship or working on an industry-sponsored project. And it turns out that the research we do in grad school is very similar to that done in industry. The facilities sure look similar. STEM PhD students should have the option of an immersive multi-year experience in industrial research to better train them for work after graduation. Some European universities have such programs with stellar results. The students produce valuable intellectual property for their industrial sponsors. For example, Danish small businesses employing PhD students apply for 10% more patents annually than other small businesses. One patent alone can be worth $500,000 to $1 million, which easily makes up for research expenses and wages. In addition, students are more likely to work at that company or in the same region once they finish grad school, and students in these programs give wonderful reviews about the experience. Session because PhD students are a cost-effective, skilled workforce. Small tech businesses have already cut costs, in particular labor and R&D, to compensate for lost revenue from the pandemic. Yet studies have shown that this is just a band-aid, not a long-term solution. Normally, businesses hire people with master's degrees in STEM for entry-level R&D jobs and pay them around $100,000. PhD students had the exact same qualifications, but with half the salary. Businesses need to maintain R&D or else they'll fall behind when demand returns. Hiring PhD students is an affordable solution for small businesses to maintain their R&D despite the recession. All we need is a little help from the California state government to get this off the ground. This support comes in the form of R&D tax credits, which already exist in our state and federal law. Through this program, small and medium-sized businesses get tax credits for expenses and wages used towards R&D. If you haven't heard of this, it's because very few businesses use it, claiming it's too complicated or not worth the money needed to pay an accounting firm. I propose the California legislature revise the R&D tax credit application process, making it simpler so more businesses can take advantage of it, and adding specific language to include part-time PhD student labor. I also ask that certain government agencies like GoBiz help promote this program. Much like clerkships in government and residency in medicine, this will help prepare PhD students for careers in industry and help businesses maintain innovation. It's a win-win. And maybe in a few years, we'll hear people say truthfully how much they love R&D tax credits. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Questions?
Thomas, I'll go first since you've got the California State Assembly down there as a partner. So a little bit about your proposal, which looks like a great proposal. I actually understand the concept behind it, but we're in a recession. Our budget's being cut, and then there's just the overall politics. I serve on the Assembly Rev and Tax Committee, and this year, anytime any legislator proposed any type of a tax credit, it was immediately opposed by a very powerful special interest groups like the California Teachers Association. So what would you think of? What kind of strategy would you implement to try to get this through not only the Assembly Rev and Tax through the floor, but also over to the Senate? What kind of ideas would you have to do that?
Well, the first part of this proposal is hopefully not actually going to change the law too much, so it won't be a lot of work. It'll just be clarifying some language. But in the end, we might have to make some concessions. So for example, the current law doesn't seem to have a cap on the amount of money that a company can get for these tax credits. So one way to balance this more in favor of those smaller businesses instead of the bigger dogs on the end of the spectrum would be to put a cap on how much they could claim for these credits. And then another example would be I think you mentioned the Teachers Association or that type of group would. So this proposal can hopefully pull some of those education-based heartstrings, and an argument could be made for the benefits versus the costs. And finally, I think this could also increase, say, industrial revenue. And so more revenue means more taxes paid, so it could even offset.
So are you, so would you be able to show that this is revenue neutral or revenue positive?
Not yet, not with the information that I've collected from the just Google searches on and looking at the European programs who do this, but might be able to. And my initial proposal with this would be a kind of a pilot study. So only have a few companies and a few universities start it off. And then if it works and if it does, then we can evaluate it then and hopefully get some good numbers.
So how would you, so even if you did a pilot project, what would you, let's say with a few universities, would the revenue that would come in, would that be a static model, or would it be some other flexible model that you'd have to look at over years, 5 years, 10 years? The reason I say that is these folks, and I get to meet with them all the time. You know, they want to make sure, especially the reason I brought up the California Teachers Association, just as one example, there's many examples, you know, for every tax credit that's there for the schools, half of that under Prop 98, it goes away from money that they need to be able to teach kids. So you'd have to have a very solid argument to be able to say, well, if we give a tax credit here, then here's another way for us to be able to generate revenue. And so you want to make sure that that's a specific, you have a very solid proposal.
Okay. Yep. I think that it is a little flexible that we'd have to. So one of the biggest returns on this would be the increase in local hiring of students, whether it's at the business that they work at while they're a PhD or in the same region. And that would take time to develop. So they'd be making a certain amount of progress and money for the businesses while they're a student. But if they get hired locally, that would be an even greater revenue trend. So yeah, we'd have to do some forecasting and a lot more background research to make that a stronger proposal.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thomas, I have a question or a couple of questions. One, do you have any data on how many people in your industry are currently laid off?
So in the industry specific, I'm talking broadly of like small tech businesses. I don't have that data. I know the general numbers for layoffs in just overall, but I have not found specifics for small tech businesses that could benefit from this program.
Right, because what comes to mind, like for example, I have a son graduating from college and he has a geographic information system degree and it involves programming and coding. He's been applying to different tech companies to do an internship. It's not quite free, but it's a little stipend. And is that part of your educational training? Do you get these internship opportunities where you can work your way up? Because it sounds like, according to Assemblyman Chad Mays, that the politicians in the state assembly wouldn't go for this. So that's another question I have for you. Are there internships built into your degree when you graduate?
There are not. They are available sometimes, but it's most likely that students spend most of their time at the universities. And one of the big problems with internships in PhD studies is that it takes so much time to just get started and get all the proper clearances and paperwork and get the projects off the ground during those internships that you waste half of those 3 months and don't really even get to do anything. And so it's not an immersive experience that's helping prepare the students for the jobs in industry.
Well, thank you, Thomas. And I do like how you're thinking outside the box, because who doesn't like a tax credit? So thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thomas, this is Steve Hernandez. How might you reconcile any concerns that perhaps the students are being exploited and the businesses are receiving tax credits that would otherwise go to, just say, a market or a union worker?
So I think there's two elements to that. The first one is I don't want this proposal of this to kick people out of their jobs. And mentorship is an essential part of this. And so those folks that are already working at the companies who probably are parts of unions would be mentoring the students that are in there. So hopefully we don't displace any jobs from this. And then as far as the students being treated fairly and everything, so that will have to be worked into when this program gets set up. So the student will be anywhere from co-sponsored by the business to maybe fully sponsored by the business, but there's always going to be the university in there as well. And so there's kind of multiple bodies that can insert checks and balances on each other. And I would also like to draw up contracts, and then the students will be looked over pretty much. Like the HR is the guardian angel sometimes. And so I would want the students who are working at these businesses to have all the same rights that the normal employees would.
Thank you. That's great. Got good questions. And I think we need to move on to the next one. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, judges. And we're going to go on to Crystal.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Crystal Hua, a PhD candidate in the Department of Molecular, Cell, and Systems Biology, and I'm currently studying electronic cigarettes. E-cigarettes are diverse products, and hundreds of flavored e-liquids are available to consumers. In 2019, it was found that 5 million teenagers use vape products. This is a concern because adolescents can become addicted to nicotine, leading to brain and behavioral changes. It's also hard for parents to catch kids vaping compared to smoking because the vapor can disappear and some products look like USB flash drives. In terms of health effects, some products have been linked to respiratory conditions, leading to hospitalizations. Now, with the current pandemic, one question is vaping linked to COVID-19? And some questions that may arise to that is also how many of the COVID cases are vapors, and what e-cigarette products may be affecting COVID outcomes? Research has shown that vaping can weaken the lungs. So if an e-cig user contracts coronavirus, that may lead them susceptible to respiratory complications. Additionally, a recent study from Stanford surveying thousands of teen vapers showed they are 5 times likely to test positive for COVID-19. Scientists have found that nicotine in vape products allows the coronavirus to bind effectively to cells in the body. Despite mounting evidence that e-cigarettes can cause adverse health effects, the companies still are posting thousands of online ads promoting the products. Some say stay home and vape, others incentivize buying e-cig products for health safety, and more are promoting it to youth, the future generation of users. This is a tactic of tobacco companies that e-cigarette companies are using to lure people to vape. In order to protect the public health, California recently passed Bill SB 793 to ban flavored vape sales in stores. California is a leader in tobacco control, and this bill will help reduce teen vaping in the coming months. This bill is also especially important because vaping decreases lung function and can increase the risk for COVID-19. Although SB 793 can help keep flavored vape products in check in stores, it may not be the only solution to decrease teen vaping rates. So to address this complex problem, I have a multi-pronged approach to monitor and limit the appeal of e-cigarettes in teens and adults. First, there's still a lot we don't know about vape products and how they affect COVID outcomes. So we can work with physicians to expand and increase our knowledge by collecting data from COVID patient medical records. Then we can also relay this information to health departments in California to enhance our health communication strategies. We can have more health infographics and ads targeted to youth and adults. And these such ads have been shown to be effective in helping reduce vaping. Finally, tobacco ads are monitored by Tobacco Control Act and STAKE Act of California. These acts, however, do not extend to online platforms, and it will be important to have that addition on. That would be including e-cigarettes, keeping the companies accountable, as well as also keep track of their online ads. These steps will help us reduce misleading ads online and remove them. If we are proactive, we can educate the public on e-cigarette health effects. We can also decrease their desirability and understand their effects in COVID. Together, we can clear the mist. Thank you very much.
Who do you think is winning so far? I don't know.
Thank you, Crystal. Questions?
People are asking really tough questions. I thought the guy did really good. Yeah, he was certainly better.
Well, I guess I'll go first then. Crystal, I have a question. Do you have any data on how many young people, let's, for example, in the state of California, about what's the percentage of young people that are vaping, and what's that age group? Does it go up to age 30? Are we talking up to age 25?
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about adolescent groups. They have many different studies from different years, but the percentages keep increasing. I just gave data, the 5 million was from a national survey. I don't know how many in California in particular, but they're in the millions as of last year nationally.
Okay, and then do you have any data on, let's say the age group is up through, when you say adolescence, do you mean up to age 18 or?
Oh yeah, adolescents can include up to 25.
Up to 25.
Yeah, up to 25, yes.
Okay, and then do you have any data on COVID data for that age group?
See, that's an excellent question. If you go onto the CDC website, there's a lot of data on there, but it's quite hidden. You will find a surprising peak that in addition to the age group of 70 and above that has the highest group for the mortality rate, another very high group is the young adolescent age, 25 and 30 and below, actually, when you combine the two. So that, I don't think it's explained, but one possibility could be vaping may be possibly affected, but we don't know, which is why we do need more understanding research, and we need more data collection on that aspect.
Okay, thank you very much, Crystal. Good presentation.
Hi, Crystal, this is Chad.
Hello, hi.
So I'm trying to figure out the connection between COVID and vaping. Let me first talk about the vaping and that Senate bill that you referenced, because I spent 6.5 hours in committee on that particular bill, going over all the different parts of it. And the premise of that bill was to make sure that there was no retail sales of vaping for any flavor. So that's period. So whether you're a child or you're an adult, will be no more retail sales of flavored vaping, but you could still buy them online. And so there was a connection there that I'm missing between COVID and then the I guess the flavored vaping and I guess the digital ads that are being that are out there, and trying to control that, and then the impact that would have on kids. So I feel like there's a few things that were conflated there. So I want to see if I could get some clarification.
Yeah. So the issue with vaping and COVID is complex. So you have, on one hand, the product itself that can cause different health effects that can weaken the lungs and cause known health effects. So of course we want people to not vape during COVID, and if they can quit, that would be good. And on the other hand, though, so we have this bill that you're talking about. There's a lot of products, and it's great that now in our state that we have banned the sale of flavored vape products. And I think that goes into effect next year, like January of next year. And this, I believe, will help reduce kids' access and teen access to the products. But there's also many other ways that tobacco and e-cig companies are promoting the products. So they also sell the products e-cig products looking disguised as other products, like maybe say like a game product that people can vape. They're hidden. So there's other ways, and in addition to that, there's the ads online that kids can still be exposed to, and they can be attracted to vape products, and there is a possibility that they may get them through other means. I'm not sure if this will also regulate the online, but a point is that the ads are very important to monitor online, because kids are using the internet every day and they can still be exposed to that. So that's on the other point. And in general, it would be helpful if the public knew more about e-cigarette health effects so that they can stop vaping. And that would be helpful for them during these times.
Any other questions for Crystal? Okay, thanks. Crystal, you've got some questions in the chat that we'll get back to you on.
Okay,
and now Lindsay.
Okay. Hello. All right, hi everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Lindsay Pedroncelli, and I'm a fourth year PhD candidate studying plant pathology. So I'd like to ask you, when was the last time you bit into an apple and realized that you forgot to remove that little sticker from it? Well, if you accidentally ate it, you'll be fine, but I certainly wouldn't encourage you to. I also wouldn't encourage you to put it in your recycling or compost bin. Unfortunately, those tiny stickers are not recyclable or compostable, and they won't break down over time. Now, you might be thinking, it's just one sticker. But when California alone produces nearly 125,000 tons of apples in 1 year, those little stickers can really add up. But with this policy, we can fix that. So these single-use plastic-based produce stickers are used by grocery stores to distinguish one piece of produce from another with a particular number called a price lookup. It's how the cashier can tell the difference between a Fuji apple and a pink lady apple and conventional produce from organic. Interestingly, though, these produce stickers are not regulated. The FDA outlines what kind of chemicals can be used in the adhesives for the stickers, but there's no legislation about what the label itself should be made of, or if there should be any label at all. The use of these stickers is completely voluntary, yet they're on nearly every single piece of fresh produce in the grocery store. And even though they're small, their negative effects can really add up. They're not recyclable, biodegradable, or compostable, and through their processing and use, they generate a ton of plastic and CO2 waste that ends up polluting our environment. So to solve this problem, I suggest implementing my two-phase approach. In phase 1, we will phase out the use of traditional produce stickers and instead use compostable produce stickers. These stickers can go through the same machinery as traditional stickers, and they're priced competitively to plastic stickers. Therefore, phase 1 only requires a very low financial investment. However, breaking down and being incorporated into compost is not an immediate process, and this option will still generate waste. So that brings me to phase 2, which involves using cutting-edge laser technology that makes it possible to etch a label onto the skin of the product without damaging it or affecting its quality. Laser labeling or natural branding is already being used by some companies, but it's not very widespread. Since you can create any design you want, you can imagine how the marketing opportunities are endless with laser labeling. Just imagine how excited a child will be to eat an apple because Mickey Mouse is on it. Now, this technology will involve an initial investment and likely some maintenance costs, but the benefits to the environment are staggering. Natural branding will drastically decrease the amount of both plastic and CO2 waste associated with producing and applying these traditional produce stickers. It will use only 1% the amount of energy it takes to produce the traditional produce stickers. One Swedish supermarket even claimed that by using natural branding on all the organic avocados they would sell in 1 year, they would save 135 miles of plastic 30 centimeters wide. Now that's just one product in one store. So though there's no mandate to use a sticker, there should be a mandate to use an environmentally friendly option. Now, natural branding may not be feasible for all products, take broccoli for example, but by 2025, companies and retailers should be in either phase 1 or phase 2. Otherwise, they will be subject to violations similar to producing mislabeled food. So they seem like a small problem, but they really add up and create quite a sticky situation. But this policy will fix that, and it will make the produce industry safer and more sustainable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Questions?
Hi, this is Steve. Have we taken a look at the cost of regulation on the agriculture industry? We know that the impacts of regulation, whether they be pesticides or whether they be labor costs, has in a sense shut down some farms. What do you think the impact of this proposal would be?
So I think this really falls onto big companies. I think it's big companies that are putting their logo and their label onto these products. And if it's smaller companies that are using this, then they might be applying their own label. But I think if they're only able to go to phase 1 and just use the compostable produce stickers, that is still good. That can be allowed with this policy. And I think it might be easier for the smaller companies and smaller farms to use phase 1 because the financial investment is not as high with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the impact of regulation on economic growth and understanding what that cost would be one way or another.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's something that I have not really looked into. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, Lindsay, let me jump in here real quick. So that was a great question, Mr. Mayor. Well, I enjoyed that. Of course, some of you might not know that that Mayor Hernandez actually represents an ag community. There's a lot of agriculture very close by to where he's at. So that was a good question. So I'm a little fascinated by this actually, and I wonder why some of the larger ag producers aren't already doing this, because I would imagine this might end up saving them money. I can think of prime time. Mayor Hernandez will know this. There's a very large outfit. I don't know, is it in Coachella? I don't know if it's in Coachella or very close or just outside of the city border.
It's in Coachella. It's in Coachella.
And they have these cameras that when the fruit is running through, they actually take a photo of the fruit or the product, and then it starts to sort it out based upon whether it's good, somewhat good, or very good. And so I would imagine while there's running through those sorters that they could probably, etch a quick little scan thing on there as well. And so I wonder if actually this would be, if this technology was real, and instead of it being a government mandate, if companies would just decide to do this on their own. Although I do think that this would be an incredible cost for the smaller farmers, just because that technology is probably pretty expensive.
Yes, I know this will not be feasible for everyone, but I think it's just people don't really know about it. I know some companies in across the pond are using it, but it's not very widespread in the United States. So I think California could really be a front runner in that sense, and just spread the word about it, make it known that this is a technology that you can use. And I think it will be feasible for larger companies to kind of set the stage in that way.
Okay, and then Lindsay, question, do you have any data from, you said across the pond, on consumer reaction to seeing branding like the example you had of the apple with the big gold stamp on it, because I'm not sure if consumers would prefer that on their apple, for example.
Yes, I know that was a pretty big example of a design, but it could end up being just the number that they use to actually identify the product. So it could be very small. It might not even, be very visible when you're picking out your products, but it could just be the little thing that you scan and the price lookup number. So it could be very small, but I think I haven't looked specifically at what people think of this, but I just immediately thought of all the different designs that companies would be excited to put on these products, but it might not be well received by everyone. That's right.
Well, thank you. It's a very good presentation.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Lindsay? Okay, we're smack on time. We're amazing. Good, thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. And Kavya. Oh no, it's Stephanie. Sorry.
I was gonna say. Thanks everybody for tuning in and staying to the later talks as well. Okay, hi everybody. So I'm Stephanie Piper. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Botany and Plant Sciences at UCR, and I'm an urban ecologist, so I study the concrete jungle. So at this point, most people on Earth live in cities, and because of that, we feel a really big difference between cities and nature. We think of nature as pristine and as a pure version of the world, but urbanization is only increasing, and with that, pristine nature is becoming less and less accessible for more and more people. And time in nature improves both mental and physical health. And we all need those mental health benefits that come from spending time outdoors, especially while we continue to work and attend events virtually. With nature becoming less accessible, those benefits are likely available to fewer people, but are those benefits really being lost? A major hurdle keeping us from getting those benefits without going out to nature is plant blindness. Now, you can probably recall the last animal you saw in the city, but it's a lot less likely you remember the last plant. And you aren't alone. People remember animals much easier than plants, which are often filtered into the background, since they're all essentially the same color and don't move. But cities don't have as much of a shortage of plants as we think, and many cities are actively working to become more green. So plant blindness results in an underappreciation of plants and often a limited interest in plant conservation. You are a lot less likely to protect what you don't recognize or already know. But plant conservation is really crucial for human and environmental health. Plants provide food and medicine and protect us from global warming. This disconnect between seeing plants and appreciating them means that a lot of green space development doesn't have a connection to the community. So even if some new green infrastructure is beneficial, policymakers can still find that the community isn't fully supportive. So what is the cure? Well, generally, scientists agree that a cure to plant blindness needs to start early, but science education has plenty of its own challenges, and going out to pristine nature isn't always accessible and puts a lot of weight on the parents. Federal, state, and local governments can help improve interactions with plants by focusing energy directly in the communities. We can give the communities the tools to see, and I'm proposing 2 ways that policymakers can make these tools succeed in cities. The first is to expand national and state park interpretive signage, which are used for interactive learning, into green areas in cities. And they have this program in place already with hundreds of thousands of signs across the country, and cities can take advantage of that. These signs and parks act as captions to the landscape. The goal is to be apparent when you need it, but feel like it belongs there. And they're meant to help us interpret what's in front of us. It's all about helping the reader understand the relevance of your site or your message to their own lives. The second is to expand rules on green space statewide. Green space requirements for new developments put in place by bills like CEQA focus really heavily on limiting negative effects of development rather than aiding nature-based solutions. And they're often left up to the cities, so the benefits are really disjointed across the state. And the same is true for public education and community engagement. So it often ends up that some cities and communities are a lot more supported than others. So new urban signage and a requirement in place statewide can help green space in a way that will cure plant blindness. And with these steps, we can help bridge the divide between cities and nature and appreciate nature in cities where we already live. And the benefits go beyond plant conservation and protecting what you know. When communities understand and appreciate green infrastructure projects as more than just more construction in their backyard, those projects become a cherished part of the community. This also helps them connect with their policymakers and representatives and understand what they're doing. This also increases accessibility to science. So it takes some of the pressure of teaching off of teachers and parents who have huge education burdens as we continue to teach and learn remotely. And finally, the Coachella Valley is an ideal place for this project to begin. A thriving plant community makes you think of a lush forest, and there's generally less excitement to protect the desert. And as a Palm Springs native who didn't become a plant biologist until I left for college, I know firsthand how disconnected the desert can be from the plant life there. And so a stronger connection to nature, focusing on a cure to plant blindness, has benefits for personal health, community connections, and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Questions?
Okay, well, Assemblyman Mays, do you want to go first?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, so I'm the mayor of Palm Desert. I've been on the council about 4 years. And, you know, unfortunately, we've created, I'm not saying the city of Palm Desert, but in general, from the governor's office on down to our water district, Coachella Valley Water District, we've been incentivizing people to rip out their grass and along with it, all their plants. And then we're getting too much desert and concrete. Have you done, or how would you go about trying to change the policy because of concern of the lack of water? Have you reached out to any of these municipalities, water districts?
Well, so I don't think we need to even fully change away from kind of desert landscaping. The idea is, especially in deserts, I'm not proposing that we put a bunch of plants in now. That's not really realistic to what is comfortable in the desert and what thrives there. And this is more kind of drawing attention to plants that really do thrive in the desert. And that's the idea of, you know, you look at the desert and generally see dead area, but there are a good number of plants that we can add into landscaping. And it's more of connecting those as nature to people who live there. Because I know, again, growing up in Palm Springs, we spent a lot of time being mad that the only trees there were palm trees. And if it's just building an appreciation for palm trees rather than, you know, thinking about forests, I think we can still have this in place without having to take away all the water conservation that the desert has done a really good job of doing.
Okay, thank you very much. I like your idea.
Stephanie, this is Steve. Are what you're suggesting is that on the local level, that cities need to really think about their landscape, just approvals and integrating more native plants, as well as perhaps creating demarcations and educating, whether it be new homeowners or, you know, even in a park design. How practically can we approach this on the local level? What are your suggestions there?
Yeah, so I think native plants are great, but I don't think we have to, that should be the only focus. I think when we're thinking about homeowners in the desert, it's, you know, not only what plants are good for the environment, but also what the homeowners want to plant and what they enjoy there. So I think kind of combining those is really crucial. That's my main thought. And especially for cities, just focusing on, you know, I think the public engagement is a great way, particularly in the desert, to just be like, this is what this cactus is doing. And it's not just sitting there and not growing for years. Like, there are these other exciting, like, pollinators that come visit this specific yucca, or this bird likes to burrow into this cactus, and that's where it gets its water, and kind of just those ways to connect to the environment more. And it helps kind of build city and state pride as well, I think.
So is the solution to implementing this is to work alongside cities on whether it be new renovations or perhaps are being offered for water conservation? Or in my case, I have a lot of new developments. Is it in the entitlement process where, you know, a developer is proposing a landscape plan? How do we practically kind of move forward on this?
Yeah, so some cities have certain like X amount of green space is required in a new development. So that's one solution. But I think it's also just kind of talking about like what's already there. You don't need to like rip everything out and re-landscape, but especially in like, like Coachella has a lot of agriculture and areas. It can even be just like, this is what this agriculture field looks like. This is how we're making it work in the desert. Because I think a lot of people view the desert as not a place where you could have agriculture. And so it's just kind of, it's about interpreting what is there. And that's why I think these national park signs are a great way to just have people be able to look at a site and kind of understand the environmental impact, but also why it should matter to them as people who live in the city.
So Stephanie, I just need to start off saying that you're very smart. One of the first things that you do when you pitch a politician is tell them that you're from their districts, and that the next thing you should have said is, and I'm a voter, right? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So you did that very well. So thinking about these information kiosks, I think that's what I don't know what you called them. But where would they be? Would they only be on trails to be able to show what the natural landscape is? Would they be next to sidewalks? Where would you propose that these go?
I think beyond just trails is important. So I think one example is some places, and Palm Springs and Palm Desert have some of this too, of like pocket parks is a good idea of like just something that you can see the sign. But I also think it makes a lot of sense to keep these on sidewalks and not focus just on native plants. There's plenty of, plant biologists talk a lot about how bad invasive plants are, but there are a lot of really beautiful invasive plants. That's why they're in the city. That's why we picked them to landscape with. And I think there's a lot of great information about how plants and how biology works that you can get from invasive plants. And so I think having it even in neighborhoods of like, if there's like a tree that's been there a long time, or someone who even this could be something to connect the specific homeowners or neighborhood associations with too, of, is there a part of your neighborhood that you feel particularly proud of? And what do the plants and what do the animals look around here? And I'm focusing on plants because I think they kind of fall by the wayside for a lot of people, and especially in the desert, but I think you can really build on what people have around them.
Any more questions? Great, let's move on. Thank you, Stephanie. And now we have Kavya.
Hey folks, hopefully. Okay, so hey folks, my name is Kavya Samudjala. I'm a third-year graduate student in the Department of Chemistry, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about helium. So most people think of helium in the context of balloons or funny voices, or in this case, the movie Up and balloons and a disgruntled looking dog. But helium is actually a critical element in a wide variety of sectors for two main reasons. Firstly, it's a really light gas, so it has a very low density. And secondly, it's a very good coolant, so it stays a liquid at very low temperatures. Now, these are intrinsic properties of helium that make it singular and irreplaceable in several sectors, ranging from semiconductor manufacturing to arc welding to academic research like the research I do here at UCR, and most importantly, hospitals. So the largest amount of helium actually goes to hospitals for MRIs. So if you've heard of an MRI or if you've been in an MRI, MRIs use helium. Now, California is home to over 500 hospitals and over 35 research universities. So this matters here. Now, helium is primarily sourced from pockets of gas that are discovered incidentally with natural gas reserves. And the largest supplier to the global helium industry is the United States. Now, not even at a close second is the nation of Qatar, which means about a quarter of the global demand. Now, the United States primarily supplies helium from the Federal Helium Reserve. This was established in 1925, but in recent years, the helium market has become privatized rapidly. Now, in 1996, the Federal Helium Reserve started being sold off at fixed rates, and in 2013, it actually started to become auctioned off. Now, this auctioning has created an oligopoly of helium suppliers, and it's caused the prices of helium to skyrocket. This has actually been a problem in recent years, and it's thrown the market in chaos. For example, in 2017, an embargo on the nation of Qatar actually prevented the, again, second largest supplier of helium from being able to export it. Now, this caused prices of helium to increase by 500% and made access to helium extremely difficult, even for hospitals. Now, the United States selling off the federal helium reserve is set to be complete in the next year or two. And this will continue price gouging by the shrinking number of suppliers and will strain this inelastic market even further. Now, our solution is to consider the establishment of a California helium reserve. We would suggest firstly conducting a thorough review of California's helium capacity conducted through the Geological Survey and Department of Conservation. In the interim, we would suggest looking into helium efficiency grants for hospitals and universities. For example, UCLA is starting this already, and it's quite common in Europe. In the long term, moving forward, California should consider establishing a helium reserve. Now, the federal helium reserve currently earns $430,000 per day after operating costs. So this venture would not be a sunken cost. We could also consider forming a coalition with other Western states to share resources and costs in this. Now, California has always been an exponent in innovation, science, and technology. The state has the 5th largest economy in the world, and investing in helium is a way we can continue serving in this capacity globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. Questions?
Sorry.
Well, I'll ask a question then. With the shortage of helium, how much does the balloon industry play a part in the shortage of helium? Because I would think helium is a priority for the healthcare industry, MRI machines. And what's the percentage on balloons? I see all those pretty balloons behind you.
Yeah, oh, this is the background, but yes, helium, actually the commercial demand for it is a very small fraction of how much it costs. So most helium is used as a liquid. So hospitals, for example, and academic researchers mostly use it as a liquid. And the gas itself, it doesn't take that much gas to fill up a little balloon. So that's, I mean, it is something that's critical to look at. And in past years, you may have had trouble finding helium balloons. So for your kid's birthday party or something like that. But it's actually not too much of a piece of the pie.
I see. Okay, and then also, how would you propose government then take a role based on the history? Once we privatized it, that's when the problem and the shortages started happening. What role do you see government doing?
So our proposal is for California to actually establish a helium reserve. This would involve scoping our natural gas reservoirs within the state. If not that, we could look into purchasing mineral rights elsewhere. And this would be framed based off of the Federal Helium Reserve Act, like establishment itself in 1925.
Okay, thank you very much. Good report.
Any other questions for Kavya? Great. Well, thank you, Kavya. And I think the judges are now going to go into a private room and deliberate and come back. There have been some questions that have popped up in the chat. We will answer them. We might not have time to answer them live, but we will get back to everyone and answer them. Judges are going to go and discuss prizes. We've got cash prizes. However, I will say that everybody's going to be a winner tonight. Everybody's going to get something. The students have put a lot of time and effort into thinking this, and it's not their day job. So we'll come back and have some feedback from the judges shortly. Now I'd like to introduce you to Amy Gilson. Amy works with us And she's going to give you a quick tour of what Science to Policy is. Amy joined us a year ago or so. Now she has a PhD in chemistry, and she's the Senior Program Director and Instructor in our UCR Science to Policy program. So Amy, you want to take it away?
I sure do. All right, hello everyone. As Susan said, my name is Amy Gilson, and I'm the Senior Program Director here at Science to Policy. We didn't want you to get away without having a bigger overview of what we do on campus and beyond. But let's start by thanking our students again. Those were some really interesting ideas. I know I learned something, and I'm really interested to see where the judges land. And speaking of judges, thanks to all of you again, Congressman Mark Takano, our host, Mayor Niscandi, Mayor Hernandez, and Assemblymember Mays, bringing together the early career scientists at UCR with decision makers so that they can learn from each other and the students can learn to ask questions and think more like an elected official is part of what makes Science to Policy so special and unique. Broadly, our mission is to mobilize UC Riverside's civic-minded scientists to address society's most pressing challenges. So think about what we're dealing with right now with COVID, with wildfires, with access to healthcare. These are huge issues, and the decision makers who are creating policies need the best possible information to address them. And a lot of that information is science and data, research that's being done right on UC Riverside's campus. So we bridge those two communities through proactive science advice, practical training, like our students got in preparation tonight, and direct participation in policymaking processes, like the fellowships that Mark Takano talked about. On the right here, you can see another example of that. One of the students in our program, William Ota, up in Sacramento, talking with State Senator Roth of Riverside about his research. We're primarily a student-driven organization. You can see there on the left, the student leaders who are working on everything from curriculum development to putting on events like this and writing policy and scientific reports. And then on the right, professional staff, Susan, Doug Brown, our associate director, and myself, who are supporting that vision and also taking everything we've done so far. We've only been around for just over 2 years and already done so much. We're trying to take that and actually formalize it on campus as a center. So that's a lot of what we're doing right now. My background, as Susan said, is in chemistry. So I was in a place very similar to the students who presented today just a few years ago, working on my PhD, but also with a passion for public service. And so I got the opportunity to combine both of those through a science policy fellowship in California government, where I've stayed ever since. And so now being able to come full circle and bring what I've learned about policymaking and my understanding of academic science back to UC Riverside is really special. And also one of those things that makes it unique, makes Science to Policy unique among policy programs on campus. We have 3 pillar programs that make up Science to Policy: our professional development program, academic, and we're spinning up right now a translational research and science advice program that I'll tell you about in a sec. Starting with professional development though, we're super excited to start just last year our legislative and congressional science policy fellowships. You already heard Congressman Takano talk about that. So that's the congressional level. And then this year, for the first time, a fellow was placed in an assembly office, a state assembly, with Assembly Member Eloise Gomez-Reyes, and with the mayor of Palm Desert here and the mayor of the city of Coachella. Maybe our next student will be at the city level. We have a ton of events as well. Science Policy Hackathon is one. You might have heard of computer hackathons where programmers get together and try to create some cool new product in a really short amount of time with a burst of energy and create that new program. We host a similar kind of event, but now they're hacking policy, trying to think about how students can use their scientific backgrounds to propose an interesting new idea like you heard today in the policy arena. And then down below with the mock legislative hearing. This gives participating graduate students the opportunity to kind of experience what it's like to be an elected official at a hearing where legislation is being debated, amendments are being debated. They're hearing from stakeholders and ultimately voting yay or nay on the legislation. Next, our academic program. It's expanding, but our cornerstone is the Science Policy Certificate course. We just finished up our second year offering that certificate course, graduating now 28 students and about to have our next class coming in January. The goal of this program is to provide hands-on training so that early career scientists and social scientists included can become active members of the policy community. So this is a 10-week program, 3 weeks intensive each week. And we go from Policy 101, the nuts and bolts, to how to communicate your science effectively, to networking, meeting people who actually work in policy, hearing about what they've worked on and what career paths they've taken. This prepares students to do anything from continuing in academia, but now knowing how they can leverage their research in supporting policy and decision makers, or doing something more like what I did, or what a number of our alums have done, making the switch to working primarily in policy, but still having that scientific background. And here you can see we were already virtual when our class graduated, but we still got them physical certificates and had a great celebration. And then finally, our translational research and science advice program. Now, what I've talked to you about has been primarily student focused. This program is both student experts and also faculty. So I was talking about how important it is for decision makers to get timely and actionable information. With this program, our aim is to support all levels of government that serve the Greater Inland Empire and the Coachella Valley through rigorous, timely, and actionable science. So, and on the left there, you can see an example of an event that we held, the 2020 Vision, the Future of California Agriculture, which brought together academic experts in agriculture with, and policymaker decision makers, and also folks who are working in the nonprofit sector and industrial sector all around agriculture to share their expertise and talk about and troubleshoot the future of California agriculture. And then on the right are two events that we're currently working on, or two efforts we're currently working on. In the middle, something similar to what I was just describing, but now a roundtable with scientists and policymakers around wildfires. And then finally, on the right, something a little bit different. Science to Policy is partnering with UCR's Salton Sea Task Force. This is a cadre of really world-class ecologists and other types of scientists and social scientists who are experts in the Salton Sea and the ecological challenges there, the health challenges it's creating for the community. They've been working on an authoritative report of the issues around there, and we're partnering with the Salton Sea Task Force to help disseminate that to the public and to the elected officials and government offices that can really use the information in that report. Now, Science to Policy, we're at the UC, we're supported by the graduate division, but all of our funding comes from charitable giving. So please think about supporting us and certainly stay connected. This event is just one of the ways that you can be involved in supporting our program. As I mentioned, we're working on establishing a center on campus, and that's a big community effort. So we welcome your help by connecting us with your professional networks or sharing your expertise with our students the same way that the elected officials with us tonight are doing, or through your philanthropic support. There are a number of ways to support students and programs like ours at UCR, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us either in the chat box or after today's event. And once again, we want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to our lead sponsors for tonight's event. That's the Regional Access Project and the Palm Desert Center's Partners Program. 100% of their donations and also the individual donations that came in for tonight's event go directly to our students, to their prizes tonight. So please consider including us in your charitable giving this year. And to make a gift online, you can go to donate.ucr.edu/STP. And certainly stay connected however you'd like, and we hope to see you at future events. Now, if the judges are still deliberating, let me see if there are any questions that we can answer here. I'll stop sharing my screen. All right, so we have one here. Where do students completing this program go? So students go on a variety of career paths because this, like you can see the skills that they learn from this are really transferable. There was one student who just got an internship. She's currently still a student, but she got an internship complemented in part on the communication skills, the ability to talk about her research that she developed through this program. Other students stay in academia. So I mentioned the Salton Sea Task Force. One of the students who's been, he's not a student anymore, he was one of our students. Now he's a postdoc and he's working on, he's involved in writing that, that report. So staying in academia, but still doing some of that translational work. And then we have a number of alums who have gone on to work in DC, in congressional offices, in the executive branch, and even a fellow that has gone on to work in science communication at a newspaper. So really it runs the gamut of career opportunities that come for students who come out of this program. Let's see. And second, where else beside congressional or legislative offices can students be placed as fellows? So students can be placed as fellows basically wherever we have partnerships. We have really strong ties with some of our congressional representatives and also with the California state legislature. And so we have, students who have worked in those areas. But like I was talking about, our broader goal and our broader vision for science to policy is really to serve all levels of government, from local all the way to the national level, who have a focus on the community that we're a part of. And so going forward, we're planning and working on finding opportunities for students at the county level, at the city level, maybe at regional bodies like water boards. One of the upcoming fellowships that hasn't just started, but actually Stephanie, if I can put a little plug for her, is hopefully going to be starting up in it's hopefully going to be starting. Well, do you want to talk about this, Stephanie? I mean, you're out here.
Sure. Well, it's here. Yeah. So Amy mentioned the Salton Sea Task Force, and that's full of researchers at UCR who are doing great work there. And so the leader of that task force, Marilyn Fogel, who's a member of National Academy, saw this great opportunity to translate to policy, and so came to us to work on it. And we've been talking with the consultant in the Assembly Committee for Water, Parks, and Wildlife, and he actually he's also a PhD scientist. He did the same fellowship that Amy did, and I'll be working with him kind of improving community engagement around the Salton Sea and making sure that, very similar to my talk, that the restoration projects are visible to the people they're affecting, and so that they can kind of understand where all the money is going to from the state, and making sure that all the communities by the Salton Sea are staying healthy. So I'm really excited about that. Anyone tuning in from the desert, the Salton Sea well, that smell well, and hopefully we can get that down a little bit.
We also have strong ties with the School of Public Policy on campus. So students can do both science to policy program and also pursue a designated emphasis in public policy through the program there. And we've seen that students who are coming from really any field, whether it's physics or the social sciences, really bring a lot to the program and flourish from it. All right, it looks like our judges are back. Yes. All right, so I will step back and turn it over to you to announce the winners.
Yes, yeah, please tell us. Let's start with third place.
Thank you. In third place is Kavya with the federal helium, actually the state helium proposal.
And your reasoning behind that? What was the?
Kavya did a very outstanding job in giving us the issue, explaining why it's important to the market, and making sure that in the future that there isn't an oligarchy that can price control the helium within California.
Okay, good, excellent. Anything else to add, judges? Then second place.
Well, I will say we were only given a short amount of time to debate, and it really was a tough decision to determine first, second, and third. Everybody was within a few points of each other. Just so you know, congratulations. And this is a good first attempt to take on an endeavor like this. And I'm hoping it'll be a great learning experience for everybody. Anyway, I am happy to announce that second place winner is Lindsay with her natural branding of produce. And how we came to that conclusion was, well, she stayed within her 4 minutes. It was clearly communicated. The feasibility, we had a little bit of debate. We were all in agreement that using organic stickers that are compostable, great idea. Not sure of the laser component of it, but still, we gave it high marks. And then we believe Lindsay made a good case understanding the role of government, and it was a creative idea. So I'm happy to say she earned second place.
Super, thank you. Assemblymember Mays, it's up to you.
Sure, well, I feel like we need a drum roll before I make the announcement. It's actually a bummer that we can't see faces either. When just to be able to see the shock or awe or disappointment as well. So, oh, there you go. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. There you go. Well done. Well, it was, as Mayor Nastandi had pointed out, it actually was very close with all the numbers. One thing I want to just suggest to all of you is that there wasn't one proposal that was complete, not one. But that is actually completely okay because the way that policy making works is you might show up in my office and say, hey, I have the most wonderful idea in the world. And then I would go, well, that's interesting. Let me tell you the 5 or 6 groups that you need to go talk to sort of help you through this. And then you go have conversations with them. And every time you have those conversations and that collaboration, policy begins to get better and better and better. And oftentimes you'll introduce legislation once and it might not get out of its first committee. And so then it takes time to go work through those committee members. And one by one, you start to realize what others are looking for. And then you can introduce it again. So policy making is not something that is quick. It does take a long time, but through collaboration and sitting and reasoning together with folks, you can come up with really good public policy. So in my humble opinion, and it was a close call, but in California, we've made a decision on renewable energy. And in fact, we are going to be moving towards 100% renewable. We have a long way to go to be able to have to be able to get that sustainable energy, but also to be able to have the storage and the energy security that we're going to need. And so it was quite a fascinating idea to have agri-solar presented. There's still a lot of things that need to be dealt with, but the top, the number one for today is Holly Andrews. So congratulations, Holly.
Thank you.
Ooh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Everyone is going to get a prize out of this, right? You all know that. So for those of you who are not first, second, or third, you will get a nice gift certificate. So you will be rewarded. We know how much time and effort you put into this. So I want to thank the judges immensely for your time. You put a lot of time into this evening. It's very valuable. You can see how a scientist is talking to you. There is so much that we can share and so much that we can grow on. And students will learn more and more how to work in the policy world, how to work in your world, how to talk your language. So it's really great that you're here and that they know that you're interested. And we'd love to keep in contact with you and work with you on other events. So total kudos for you turning up tonight and doing this great feedback for our students. And our students will all agree, right? Right, it's a wonderful, wonderful connection. So thank you, judges. Thank you very much. I also wanted to thank the audience. We've had a lot of questions coming in. I haven't been able to field them all in the chat room, but we will get back to everybody. We'll make contact with everybody who's asked a question and get back to them. I'd like to invite the audience participation of future events. We intended to have a number of these. Our next one is going to be in January and it'll be on wildfires. So we will keep in contact with you on that. And finally, I'd like to thank the UCR Palm Desert Center and our sponsors because you really helped put this together. It's been a very, very interesting evening and it's been a good road show for us to try and put on. It was not without its challenges, not only technical, but all the challenges that go with trying to do everything in a virtual environment. So I want to thank you for that. And any last minute phrases from our judges? You're welcome to have the last card.
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to be one of the judges. It was an honor, and really, I'm proud of all of you, all you PhDs. You're so smart, and you'll have bright futures and careers. So, and reach out to my office at City Hall anytime.
Assembly member?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as I'm looking over here to my left, my fiance, Dr. Almasi, went to UCR and got her master's degree in microbiology. And what? Oh, sorry. What is it? Molecular biology and chemistry? Oh, whatever. She's super smart. But it's fascinating when you're talking about science and policy. There needs to be more work between those two. Because even in our relationship, sometimes I've learned a tremendous amount from her in regards to science. But when you start to have these conversations about things like justice and freedom and free speech, and there are limitations to some of these things. And so as scientists, you often will think, well, it's just science. That's how it is. Well, there's a lot more to it. There's been millennia of debates about the way that government should act and why we should act. And how we work in a collective way versus an individual way. And so it is incredibly fascinating. And if any of you want to spend some more time, if you want to drive out here, I guess we're still trying to do this COVID thing. But when we get through all of this, if you'd like to get together, if you can invite me to campus to be able to talk a little bit more, I'd love to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. It's a great evening. Different entertainment than watching the TV, and live and real, very real, and with very real problems and very real solutions. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you again.
Bye.